when he donated his ring in the middle of Salah. When this verse was revealed, some Sahaba were envious. They were envious of Amir al-Mu'mineen. So historians say that the next day they came to the masjid and they had their finger out in Salah, take my ring! We won't mention names, that's obvious. Alhamdulillah, there's no recording, right? They made a fool out of themselves. إِنَّمَا وَلِيُّكُمُ اللَّهُ وَرَسُولُهُ. So Rasulullah was a guardian. He was the head of state. This is very important to understand this. Why? Because when he makes a command, maybe he makes the command as a head of state, not as a messenger. You see? If it was stated by him as a messenger, then this is for all times and all places. But if a command was stated by him as a guardian and head of state, then this only applies to his state. And here in fiqh, we have something called hukum wilayati. Laws established by Rasulullah, not as a messenger, but as a head of state. For example, we have a command by Rasulullah. Rasulullah was in Medina. Medina was full of farms. And they had palm trees. So what they would do is they would dig Saqiya, which is like a small river, so that water would reach all the palm trees. He would tell them, when you do this, and the water reaches some trees, do not stop the water from reaching other trees. Because some would only allow the water to reach their trees, not other trees. Rasulullah would say, no, let it reach other trees as well. Why? Because Rasulullah is looking from a state perspective, from a government perspective, that let people benefit. Another hadith that Rasulullah would state that if you dig a well to have water, you do not own that well. Let others benefit from that well. Let others also benefit from that well. This came as a guardian, head of state, hukum wilayati. Hukum wilayati. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wa sallam was the head of state, and he was able to issue commands as the head of state. The first to pay attention to this position, or amongst the first, was Ayatollah Sayyid Muhammad Baqir al-Sadr, rahmatullah alayh. In his famous book, Iqtisaduna, or Economics, he has a chapter on this position of Rasulullah. That Rasulullah was the head of state, not just as a messenger, but as a head of state. And so we have to study his commands carefully. Were they issued as a messenger or the head of state? Because as a head of state, some commands are general for all times and all places, and some specific to specific times, specific places. Let me give you an example. In a federal state, you have laws that surpass time and place. For example, property tax. Every citizen has to pay property tax. And in every year, so this is not a temporary law. Property tax applies to all citizens and for all times. And then there are temporary laws. For example, wearing a face mask during COVID. This was a state law issued by the state, but it was temporary. It was not for all times and all places. So as a head of state, sometimes you issue general laws and sometimes you issue specific laws meant to be for a specific time and for a specific state. It's important to understand this. That when Rasulullah makes a command, he makes the command from which sort of position. Number 3, Rasulullah was a legislator, musharra'. Meaning Rasulullah had the authority to legislate laws. Legislate laws. Haram, halal. He had the authority. Do we have proof for this? Yes. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Ma ataakum ar-Rasulu fakhuduh wa ma nahakum anhu fantahu. What Rasulullah orders you, take it. If he forbids you from doing something, stop doing it. This is legislative authority. Rasulullah had the authority to make something halal, to make something haram. I'll give you several examples based on authentic traditions. We have a hadith in Al-Kafi, Sahihat al-Fudayl ibn Yasar. The chain of narrators is authentic. that Imam Sadiq alayhi salam says, Rasulullah was disciplined by Allah and he was perfected. Allah shaped Rasulullah in the way that he wanted. So that when Rasulullah would desire something, he would desire that which Allah desires. He perfected him. Once he perfected him, he gave him the authority to legislate. And when Rasulullah would legislate, he would legislate that which Allah wants. Let me give you an example. You're a business owner and you've groomed your son to pick up your business. You've perfected him, you've disciplined him. To the point that when you go on travel, you go for ziyarah, for umrah, you know that your son, he will make the decisions that you want without having to tell him. Because you've groomed him in a way that he will desire that which you desire. You can trust him. Imagine if this is our son. Imagine Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Rasulullah was groomed and disciplined and perfected in a way that he would only desire and legislate that which Allah wants. I'll give you a couple of examples. We have a hadith, Sahihatul Fudayl ibn Isa, that when Salah was first ordained, the 5 daily prayers, they were all 2 rak'ahs, 2 units. 5 daily prayers, 2. Who added the 7 units? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Rasulullah added the 7 units. 3 to Maghrib, 1 to Maghrib, 2 to Dhuhr, Asr, and Isha. That's 7 units. When the hadith says when Imam al-Hasan, when Imam al-Hussein were born. To offer Allah gratitude, to thank Allah for the birth of Imams al-Hasan and al-Hussein, Rasulullah legislated the 7 extra units. I think this calls for an Aliyah Haydari, brother. Was that Rasulullah was a judge. He was also the head of the judicial branch. Rasulullah was a supreme judge. Do we have any proof of this? Absolutely. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. وَمَا كَانَ لِمُؤْمِنٍ وَلَا مُؤْمِنَةٍ إِذَا قَضَى اللَّهُ وَرَسُولُهُ أَمْرًا. If أَمْرًا أَنْ يَكُونَ لَهُمُ الْخِيَرَةُ مِنْ أَمْرِهِمْ. That all believing men and women, if Rasulullah issues a court order, you don't have any options anymore. Because this is a court order. In another verse, فَلَا وَرَبِّكَ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ حَتَّى يُحَكِّمُوكَ فِيمَا شَجَرَ بَيْنَهُمْ ثُمَّ لَا يَجِدُوا مِنْ أَنفُسِهِمْ حَرَجًا مِمَّا قَضَيْتَ. See, Allah. قَضَيْتَ وَيُسَلِّمُ تَسْلِيمًا. Ya Rasulullah, they will not believe, they are not true believers, unless the day that you issue court orders and they accept from you 100%, that's the day they have true belief and iman. It means Rasulullah issued court orders. He was a judge. وَإِنْ حَكَمْتَ فَحْكُمْ بَيْنَهُمْ بِالْقِسْطِ. Allah tells Rasulullah that the day you issue a court order, then do it fairly, in justice, and in all fairness. Rasulullah was a judge and he would issue court orders. Now, if Rasulullah issues a command as a judge, who does this apply to? The two who are in court. For example, Zayd and Amr, one sues the other, he issues a command. It applies to these 2 individuals. Does it apply to everyone else? No, because a court order is specific to that case. Number 5, Rasulullah was a murshid. Rasulullah would give advice. For example, medical advice. And hence we have al-tib an-nabawi, prophetic medicine. Rasulullah would give advice, medical advice. What to eat, what to drink, what food is good to take, what food should be avoided. This is medical advice. He would give military advice. He would give economic advice. This all happened because Rasulullah was an advisor. He would give general advice. Does it mean it's wajib? No. Is it haram? No. He was giving regular advice, medical advice that should be taken from him. For example, he would say, كُلُ التُّفَّاحَ عَلَى الرِّيقِ, that when you start your day, have an apple. Begin your day with an apple. This was one of the medical advices of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He would say, one of the medical advice of Rasulullah is to have 21 raisins. Raisins, which is zabib. Zabib is dried grapes. And I think that's raisins, correct? 21 raisins a day. This is good for the health. This was given as medical advice by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Sixth position was that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was a human. He also had a human side that should not be forgotten. And the Quran says, قُلْ إِنَّمَا أَنَا بَشَرٌ مِثْلُكُمْ يُوحَى إِلَيَّ. Say that I'm a human being just like you, except that I am revealed to you. I receive a revelation, and you do not receive a revelation. And of course, Rasulullah is immaculate. He is ma'soom. Others are not ma'soomeen. But we should not forget Rasulullah's human side. For example, we have a hadith that Rasulullah would eat different types of food, not just one type of food. He would eat meat, he would eat fruits. Does that mean it's mustahab to eat meat and fruits? No, it's his human side. Maybe his body needed it. For example, we have a hadith that Rasulullah's favorite fruits were cantaloupe and grapes. Al-'inab wal-batiq. He enjoyed these two types of fruits. We also have in a hadith that Rasulullah would drink milk. And he would eat dates. And after eating dates, he would drink water over it. Does this mean that this is mustahab? Not necessarily, unless he states, unless he says that it is mustahab, or that you shall be rewarded. For example, eating pomegranate. For pomegranate, there's a hadith that state it is mustahab. To eat the entire pomegranate, every single seed, that is mustahab. Sometimes Rasulullah, for example, we see him eating cantaloupe or grapes. Does that mean it's mustahab? Not necessarily. That's his human side. Maybe his body was in need of that fruit or that food, and so he ate it. One of his favorite meals, Rasulullah, he would eat al-harisa, which is oatmeal. Halim. Halim. One of Rasulullah's favorite meals was halim. I'm sure if you had seen Pakistani halim, you would have enjoyed it even more. Especially with spices. This was a dish, a favorite dish to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He enjoyed oatmeal, halim. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam had different roles and different positions. As a mujtahid, as a scholar, it's important to understand where Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is coming from. When he issues a hadith, is he stating this as a legislator, or a judge, or a commander-in-chief, or a messenger, or he's giving general advice, or as a human being? We have to understand, so that we know the repercussions. Does this apply to me, or doesn't apply to me? Let me give you an example. In the battle of Al-Khandaq, when the Mushrikeen, Al-Ahzab, when the Jews of Medina, they conspired with the Mushrikeen to attack the Mu'mineen of Rasulullah in Medina. What did Rasulullah dig? A ditch. Khandaq, the battle of Khandaq. And the idea came from whom? Salman al-Farisi. Salman al-Farisi gave the idea to Rasulullah that let us dig a Khandaq, a ditch all around Medina, so that they cannot ambush us in the middle of the night. So Rasulullah gave a command to his army and to his Sahaba to dig a ditch around Medina. Question: this command that was stated by Rasulullah, was it issued as a messenger, or the head of state, or legislator, or judge? What do you say? As the commander-in-chief, as the head of state, as the head of the army. Otherwise, in every battle, if you said this as a messenger, that means in every battle we have to dig a ditch. Does that make sense? No. This was stated as the head of state, as the commander-in-chief. So this is very important to understand where Rasulullah was coming from, to understand his hadith fully. وصلى على محمد وآله. Today is the 28th of Safar, the day of the Shahada of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the day that Rasulullah departed this ummah. You know, today was very significant. You know why? Because for thousands and thousands of years, Jibreel would bring down revelation down to earth, starting from Adam, Nuh, Idris, Ibrahim, Ismail, Ishaq, Yusuf, Yaqub, and all of the prophets, until our last prophet on the 28th of Safar of the year that Rasulullah passed away. That marked the end of revelation. That was the final time Jibreel revealed to a human being. It was the end of Wahy. Yes, perhaps Jibreel came down on earth, but not Wahy, not revelation. Revelation ended with the departure of Rasulullah. With the departure of Rasulullah, the most perfect human being departed. Allah's mercy on this earth departed. Rasulullah was a rahmah. He was a blessing. He was a mercy. On the day that Rasulullah passed away, 2 days before, Rasulullah got up. He came to his masjid. He said, Ayyuhan nas, I'm leaving. I'm leaving you. If I ever wronged anyone, if I ever hurt anyone, if I ever oppressed anyone, come and take your right from me now. Because Muhammad cannot handle hellfire. Please, if I hurt anyone, if I oppressed anyone, come and take your haqq, your right from me now. A man got up. His name is Sawada. He said, Ya Rasulullah, one day you hit me. He said, I hit you? He said, yes. You were raising your stick. By accident, you hit my stomach. And you hurt me. I want to take my haqq from you. Rasulullah said, here, Ya Sawada, take my stick. Rasulullah exposed his chest and exposed his stomach. He said, Ya Sawada, take vengeance. Take vengeance. The way I hurt you, you may hurt me. Rasulullah opened his chest and his stomach. Sawada came and he kissed the stomach of Rasulullah. He kissed the chest of Rasulullah. He said, Oh Allah, forgive me for the sake of the skin of Rasulullah. For the sake of the skin of Rasulullah. Rasulullah was full of mercy. Full of mercy. Before leaving, he would say, my family, my Sahaba, take care of my family. Rasulullah, for 6 months, he would come at the door of Fatima al-Zahra and Amir al-Mu'mineen, and he would knock. And he would knock. And he would say, As-salah, As-salah, ya Ahl-e-Bait. He would wake them up for salah. As-salah, ya Ahl-e-Bait. إنما يريد الله ليذهب عنكم الرجس أهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا. رسول Rasulullah would seek permission before entering the house of Fatima. Jibreel, and the famous hadith al-Kisa, when Amir al-Mu'mineen entered, Fatima, Hassan, Hussein, they all entered under the cloak. Jibreel came to Rasulullah. أَتَأْذَنُ لِي يَا Rasulullah? Do you give me permission, Ya Rasulullah, to enter upon you and join you under the cloak? Rasulullah gave him permission. But there was another man who barged into the house of Fatima without permission. In Arabic, there's a poem. It says, وَعَجَبًا يَسْتَأْذُنُ الْأَمِينُ. What a surprise that Al-Amin, Jibreel, when he enters, he would seek permission. وَعَجَبًا يَسْتَأْذِنُ الْأَمِينُ عَلَيْهِمُ وَيَدْخُلُ الْخَؤُونُ. But as for the deceitful, he would barge in without seeking permission. One day, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi passed by the house of Fatima al-Zahra. He heard Imam al-Hussein crying. He saw Imam al-Hussein crying. Al-Hussein was 3 years old. He said, Ya Fatima, uskuti. Ya Fatima, get him to stop crying. Ama alimti anna buka'ahu yu'dhini. Don't you know that his crying upsets me? I cannot stand to see the crying of Hussein. I said, Ya Aba Abdullah, then what would you do if you had seen Al-Hussein at the janazah of his mother Fatima? When he put his cheeks on the feet of his mother Fatima. The day that Fatima al-Zahra passed away, she told Asma that, Ya Asma, when Al-Hassan and Hussein, they come home, let them eat first. Don't tell them, don't give them news of my departure. And then Fatima al-Zahra passed away. Al-Hassan and Hussein rushed in. As soon as they came in, Asma, ayna ummuna Fatima? Where's our mother Fatima? She said, Bunay, kul al-ta'am, eat your food, eat your food. They started searching in the house, inside the house, searching. They kept on asking, ayna ummuna Fatima? Where's our mother Fatima? She said, my dear children, eat your food. Imam al-Hassan said, oh Asma, when have you ever seen us eat without our mother Fatima? Here Al-Hassan realized what was happening. He came out in the courtyard and he saw Fatima al-Zahra's janazah. His brother Hussein followed. Imam al-Hassan came to his mother, Ummah Fatima, kallimini qabla an tanfajira mararati fa'amut. My mother Fatima, speak to me before I die. As for Hussein, Hussein was 3 years old. He put his mother's feet upon his cheeks and he said, Kallimini Ummah fa inni waladuki al-Hussein. Speak to me, my mother Fatima, I'm your son Hussein. How many tragedies befell the household of Rasulullah after the demise of Rasulullah. It was the beginning of all tragedies, the mother of all tragedies. The attack on the house of the door, the assassination of Fatima al-Zahra, aborting her fetus, putting ropes in the neck of Amir al-Mu'mineen and pulling him to the masjid, forcefully getting allegiance from him. One tragedy after another, one tragedy after another, and all began with the tragedy of the demise of Rasulullah. Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah al-ali al-azim. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون والعاقبة للمتقين. يا حسين